October 17th, 2022. Yes, there was a live stream and it had much better video quality than you get from Zoom. That's really interesting. Same camera, only this time I'm fuzzy, blurry, and going in and out of focus. But that's Zoom. Turns out to be really much better on YouTube. But the forecast itself, this is going to be better. So you can just listen. Or you can watch it, you can listen, you can do whatever you want to do. It's not my business. So last week was the easy week in October, and it wasn't that easy. But most of the things that happened last week that were tough, kind of the sequelae of the full moon Pluto station that was last weekend. So the things that we didn't get a lot of new things on our plate. We're still dealing with things like the threat of nuclear war, the market's unbelievable volatility, inflation data coming in very, very hot. So we know we're in the midst of that. Real issues in terms of finances in the United States for sure, certainly in the UK and throughout Europe. A lot of stuff going on. A lot of challenging things happening at the collective level. At the personal level, I wouldn't say it was very simple and easy for folks either, although of course we each deal with things as we can. And if that was the eye of the storm, we're back in it this week. And we start out with the Sun and Venus close together in Libra, squaring Pluto in Capricorn. And at the beginning of the week, we have the moon in Cancer. Now, the moon in Cancer has this generally protective energy. I know that it's nurturing, but being protective is part of being nurturing. And each month for the last 14 years, the moon has had to deal with Pluto, right? Because Pluto is opposite in Capricorn. And so and now Pluto's at the end of Capricorn. So the moon is waiting to oppose Pluto the entire time it is in Cancer. And that is a little bit like waiting for something that is, something that you might kind of dread. The moon is protective and soft and made of cream cheese, and Pluto is digging and kind of harsh. And so not really a good combination. And it makes the moon pull towards the protective side of things, a little conservative, reactionary kind of thing. I don't mean this in a political sense. I mean it just in a practical sense. It is a conservative sort of energy. And it's not that easy. And then with Venus and the Sun squaring Pluto, the tension is likely to be very obvious. The moon is essentially making this into a T-square, which is just extra. It's just a little extra. So the Sun and Venus are trying to be diplomatic. They're trying to go through channels. They're trying to maintain a degree of formality. Pluto's not having any of that. Pluto is the bottom line. Who's in control? Who's got the power? It is this sort of, well, we're putting in all of the steps in place. We're going to talk about things. And then there's the, well, who's paying for this? Who's holding the money? Who's holding the power to make things happen? It's a bad position for the Sun to be in. The Sun likes to be in charge. And Venus, well, Venus tries to maintain balance in Libra, and then here comes Pluto sort of upsetting the apple cart. Here's a couple of different ways it can play out. One would be the iron fist and the velvet glove. Right? We're going to try diplomacy, but if it doesn't work, watch out. Now, that might be coming at you, but then again, that might be you coming at somebody else. Like, oh, we'll talk about this. We'll see if we can reach a compromise. But if we can't, we're going to do things my way. You could be on the giving end of that. You could be on the receiving end of that. So, and also whatever happens at the beginning of this week is a bit of a preview of next week's solar eclipse at the beginning of Scorpio. That happens next Tuesday. I was right the first time. So this is a preview, and more or less the things that come up that have to be dealt with, and any of the conflicts, any of the challenges that might happen, any of the potentials, because there could be a potential for something. I mean, it could push good energy into your projects and so on, is likely to be called to account at the weekend and into next week. So again, this is sort of stirring the pot, and you're not going to really know exactly what you're getting out of it until a bit later on. You don't have very long to wait. You've got about a week at most, but that's about that is a little bit of a delay. Now, as we get further on in the week, we start to approach Saturn station, and Saturn stations to go direct on October 23rd. That's Sunday, but in the wee hours of the morning, in the early hours, Eastern time, which means that we really feel this Saturn station Saturday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Saturn stations have a kind of deadline kind of energy to them. They are very much got to make a decision, and they have a very work-oriented vibe. So Friday could be a really challenging day at work. If you're working on the weekend, those could be days when you have a lot of responsibility, days when things are kind of heavy. To tell you the truth, the other possibility would be that there would be times when nothing is happening, which is not really ideal either. And then moving forward, we would have to deal with the eclipse, which is again a sort of deadline kind of energy. Next weekend, probably a good time to clean out the garage or something along those lines, do a little bit of work around the house. It may be that you don't have work to do, but you're thinking about the impending work for the rest of the week. When I get back to work on Monday, what am I going to have to do? Things that have been left undone. This is a very good time. This week, next week, things that have been left undone. With Mars going retrograde, we have a Saturn station. This is a very good time to take care of things that have been left undone. If you don't, Saturn is going to weigh in on the matter and say, well, you really should have taken care of things. So that's something to keep in mind. This is the strategy here. Okay, we want to get stuff done that has been left undone. That's worth the price of admission. That's worth all you're paying for this video, right? Saturn is stationing trine Mercury, which is very good for communication and is very good for, generally speaking, it will help in sort of a commerce kind of way and things like that. So you really get a little bit of potential out of it. So do make the most of the weekend. You don't have to spend the entire weekend working, but take care of some stuff. That's a good strategy for that weekend. Again, we're only a couple of days away from, by the end of next weekend, we're a couple of days away from the solar eclipse, and we're feeling that. And that feel of a solar eclipse is like the feeling before a thunderstorm. It's that sort of quiet before the storm type of feeling. You don't necessarily get a storm, but that doesn't matter because you feel it's the quiet before the storm, right? It doesn't mean something terrible is going to happen. You just sort of feel that impending feeling. So we have Saturn and Pluto, Saturn and Scorpio. We have this sort of tag team between these two fairly challenging energies. The way to deal with it is to work through things one at a time, go back to things that have been left undone, be fairly diligent about stuff. You having a good time? Could happen. The sun is conjunct Venus. That's nice at the end of Libra. Really favors formal occasions for next weekend. Formal occasions and things like that. Is it a raucous, go have a good time, have a ball sort of energy? Not really. It's still, some of us will have a good time, I'm sure. I intend to. I'm going to give it my best shot. But it's not exactly the time to skip. It doesn't have a lot of spontaneity. Saturn stations and eclipses and things don't really have a lot of spontaneity about them. So, if you're going to do something, kind of plan it out, work it out step by step type of thing. All right, that's plenty. And next week we'll come back and talk about the eclipse, and I'll see you then.